So, hello, I'm Ellis. Firstly, I'd like to say that this is my first talk at a conference, so I'm really sorry if I appear nervous, because I really am. To start with, I thought I'd give a brief introduction to myself. I'm a cybersecurity research intern at Airbus, and I'm currently an undergraduate student studying ethical hacking and cybersecurity at Coventry University. My main areas of interest are red teaming and networking, and in my free time, I enjoy playing video games and taking part in CTFs, and as you can see, I'm a huge keyboard enthusiast. To be honest, this slide is mostly here so I could show you some of my keyboards I've built. But anyway, on to the main topic. One of the projects I'm involved with at work is about endpoint malware detection and analysis, and my research has led me to learning about the emerging threat of ransomware as a service, or RaaS. So I've compiled a timeline of some of the key moments in the evolution of ransomware. The definition of ransomware is shifting with the innovations in technology used to carry out these attacks. In 1989, the first known instance of a ransomware attack was distributed to 20,000 attendees at the World Health Organization AIDS conference. It was released on floppy disks, and it didn't rely on any sort of exploit, only the curiosity of attendees of what was on the disk. After installing the program, everything ran fine until the 90th reboot, where the Trojan would encrypt the victim's file names, although not the contents of the files, and demand a $189 fee to restore the files. Then there's the Archivist Trojan, which first appeared in 2006, and was primarily distributed via spam emails and file-sharing sites. This was the first ransomware to use RSA encryption, which is commonly used as it was difficult to decrypt, because unlocking an RSA file needs a specific alphanumeric string of characters. The Archivist Trojan encrypted everything in the My Documents directory and contained them in a single file. For ransom, it required victims to buy items from specific websites in order to receive a key to unlock their files. Then there's CryptoLocker that appeared in 2013. This ransomware propagated via an email attachment, which was a zip file that contained an executable disguised as a PDF. When activated, the ransomware encrypted certain files stored on the local network drives using RSA encryption. The reason this was noteworthy in ransomware history is because it was the first to demand payment in Bitcoin. If the deadline wasn't met, it offered to decrypt data via an online service provided by the operators, but for a significantly higher price. And take your mind back to May 2017, when WannaCry affected devices in more than 150 countries. It contained a cryptoworm virus that propagated across a computer network using the SMB version 1 exploit known as Eternal Blue. It demanded a payment of $300 in Bitcoin, but no encryption key was available, so the victims who paid weren't actually able to recover their files. Lazarus, a North Korean state-sponsored cyber threat group, is known to use WannaCry, and it was believed to be behind this attack. Because of how widespread this ransomware was, it brought public attention to not only the threat of ransomware, but the importance of good cybersecurity practices. DarkSide largely operates on the ransomware as a service model, and it was responsible for the Colonial Pipeline attack back in 2021. Attackers got access to their network through an exposed password for a VPN account and stole 100 gigabytes of data within a 2-hour window. Colonial Pipeline paid the $4.4 million ransom, hoping to restore their IT systems faster. And while they managed to recover after the attack and got most of the ransom payment back, they will forever have the reputation of being the victims of one of the largest and most successful cyber attacks in history so far. The stages of a ransomware attack vary depending on the strain deployed, but generally speaking, it's a similar order of operation. The first phase of an attack is the distribution of the ransomware. Some common vectors, according to the MITRE ATT&CK framework, include a network being compromised by a phishing email, exploiting a public-facing application, or through external remote services such as RDP. Once there is a foothold on the target system, a connection is established with the attacker's command and control server, which is then used to send commands to a compromised system. In the next phase, the ransomware sets the stage for attack by credential harvesting and moving through the network, providing, of course, it's not just looking at the local file system, and exfiltrating data it finds, which is then sent back to the attacker through the command and control server. It also searches for files to encrypt, and then the payload is executed, and all the files are encrypted on the systems it's gained access to through lateral movement. Depending on the adversary's focus and who their target is, they might switch to primarily identifying valuable data and exfiltrating it. And then finally, the ransom request is displayed, where the attacker demands payment to decrypt the victim's files. Ransomware as a service, or RaaS, is based on the software as a service model and is advertised as indistinguishable from regular software vendors. It allows attackers to outsource the infrastructure required for these attacks, and paying in cryptocurrency allows criminal organizations to operate at such a large scale due to there being no limitations on transaction value. In fact, billions of dollars in crypto is tied to the top 10 ransomware attacks. The problem is that an attacker of any skill level, or lack thereof, can launch an attack, making them more accessible and therefore more prevalent. As mentioned before, the RaaS model is similar to the software as a service model. These services are often advertised on underground chat groups and dark web forums. And there are several ways in which affiliates can access the service. A monthly subscription for a flat fee, or through affiliate programs where an attacker earns commission for each successful ransom payment. There is also a profit-sharing model where a portion of the commission goes to the original developer or operator, or simply through a one-time license fee. Attackers are using RaaS to sell exfiltrated data as a form of secondary monetization. And as Sir Francis Bacon famously said, knowledge itself is power, as it can command obedience. If a company's sensitive data was leaked, their reputation would be tarnished, and it would force compliance in order to get their data back. Sounds like a PR nightmare to me. In some cases, instead of holding data for ransom, it's immediately exfiltrated and sold, as it would be more valuable to the hackers. This is perhaps related to the somewhat recent plunge in the value of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum. Exfiltration tools are also in the process of being updated with data corruption capabilities, which can also be used to evade security measures. I'm now going to talk about an infamous RaaS operation known as REvil. Deployments of this malware type were first observed in April 2019. They operate predominantly in Eastern Europe or Russia, and they avoid targeting systems in CIS countries, even using code to detect where a user is located. Even if you're not familiar with RaaS, you might have heard of them, and if not, you're almost certainly familiar with some of the cyber attacks they've conducted. They infamously conducted a ransomware attack against Kaseya, and the source was identified to be VSA, or Virtual System Administrator, which is a remote monitoring and management software package developed by Kaseya. There are approximately between 800 and 1,500 downstream businesses that were impacted by the attack. REvil offered a universal decryption key for the record price of $70 million. However, Kaseya received a universal decryptor tool from an unnamed trusted third party and was helping victims restore their files. As of 2022, the Russian Federal Security Service says they've dismantled REvil and have charged several of its members, although I don't believe this is the last we'll see of this ransomware gang, as some leads suggest they might return, just rebranded. According to the Sophos Ransomware 2022 report, within the last year there's been a 57% increase in cyber attacks overall. 66% of organizations were hit with ransomware in the last year, which is an increase from 37% in 2020. This means that there was a 78% increase in ransomware attacks. This shows that adversaries are upping their rate and complexity of these attacks. In 2021, 65% of attacks resulted in successful data encryption, which was an increase from 54% reported in 2020. It demonstrates that adversaries have become more capable at executing significant attacks at scale, and reflects the growing success of the RaaS model. This graph shows the percentage of data restored after companies across various sectors pay the ransom. Across all industries, an average of only 60.6% of company data was restored after the most significant ransomware attack. If ransomware hits your organization, it's paramount to follow disaster recovery procedures. Firstly, it's essential to isolate any affected devices in order to prevent further spread. Generally speaking, by the time ransomware is deployed, attackers are already embedded in the environment, so it becomes a race against time to contain the impact. It's important to identify the entry point, as it might be due to a known vulnerability, which can then be patched, along with any other holes in security. You might have to make the important decision whether to pay the ransom, like Colonial Pipeline, or remediate. However, it must be noted that paying the ransom doesn't guarantee that you'll recover your files, so I hope you have backups. You should check that attackers have not compromised the backup system, And if they've been compromised, you can avoid paying. If they've not been compromised, you can avoid paying the ransom and restore the data, after the breach has been contained, of course. The problem with digitizing everything is that there is little emphasis placed on security, and the threat of these attacks are only going to continue to escalate. Countermeasures should be taken by both the organization and the individuals to improve OPSEC. Prevention strategies could involve monitoring application behavior and identifying abnormal processes, like Notepad opening up PowerShell, for example. Not only should there be backups, it's also imperative that these backups are tested frequently. Backups can also be used to detect if there are an excessive number of changes and to alert if something is flagged as suspicious. It's also important to secure any layer 8 vulnerabilities by implementing regular security awareness training, ensuring that users know what actions they should take in the event of a cyber attack or if they identify a phishing email. It's important to use a combination of these techniques and countermeasures because one security measure is simply not enough. Think of it like a medieval castle. A castle with a strong defense would have high outer walls, a moat, a drawbridge, turrets and towers with archers, in order to prevent a breach into the castle's core. It's best to adopt a worst-case scenario tactic, by using each next layer as an assumption the previous one will fail. The aim is to minimize the area of attack surface layer by layer. Having layers of defense is critical for safeguarding systems, especially against ransomware, which works its way through an affected system, causing more damage as it goes. If an adversary breaks through one wall, at least there are other layers of defense in place to hold back the attacker. As you can see, RaaS is a multifaceted offensive campaign that is on the rise and is not going anywhere anytime soon. The impact of an attack goes beyond what is paid in ransom. The issue is the potential effects of the attack. It's imperative that not only you invest in the right technology, but have the skills and know-how to use it effectively. And lastly, be proactive. This is where threat hunting comes in. So you can stop adversaries before they can execute their attack. Now, I know there's so much more I can talk about. I haven't even scratched the surface of this topic, but thank you for listening to me ramble, and I really hope this talk has been interesting, and I hope you learned something new. Has anybody got any questions?
Hi, what might incentivize someone to offer ransomware as a service instead of doing the campaigns themselves?
Ransomware as a service, it offers the ability for people who don't even know how to code or don't really have any technological experience to launch an attack against anyone they want, really. So it allows for people who don't really know what they're doing to even launch an attack and basically monetize it.
Any more?
Thank you very much. My question is about the creators of said ransomware. What would you think their motivation would be for distributing their malware versus just using themselves and getting big payouts if you say that they offer flat fees or subscriptions for their services?
Sorry, would you be able to repeat that question?
Oh, yeah. Would it be more profitable for them to do their own campaigns and get big payouts in ransoms versus just getting a subscription fee from their users?
There are different strains of ransomware types that offer these different types of subscription fees and that. So, I guess it depends on what the adversary wants to get out of it, I suppose.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with this topic as a whole. This is just my first initial research into the topic. As I say, I've only just started the project I worked on at work, and this is all really new to me.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
But thank you for your questions.
Any more?
Does the ransomware service offer a complete end-to-end? So somebody effectively off the street could say, I want you to go and target Airbus, for example, or do they have to have some expertise behind them and they have to get an entry in?
I'm not too sure whether there are like any particular entry requirements. I mean, if you have access to these like particular chat groups, I guess anything's possible really. You don't need like a specific target or anything. You can target just any individual really. It doesn't necessarily need to be like a company or anything. But thank you very much.
I just want to say the castle reference. I did my first talk on the castle compared to cybersecurity and all of that.
Oh, yeah.
Bloody good reference. That was really good to see as well. So yeah. All right. Congratulations. You're doing a cracking talk.
Thank you very much.